In the stillness of an ordinary morning, Sophia gazed at the rippling reflection of her face in the crystal-clear waters of the lake. As she had so many times since childhood, she felt that familiar sense of displacement, a deep echo of not truly belonging to the world around her. The wind whispered through the leaves of ancient trees, carrying with it fragments of memories and sensations she had yet to fully understand. From her earliest years, Sophia carried within her a peculiarity that set her apart from others. While other children played carefree in the parks, she found herself overwhelmed by the intensity of others' emotions, sensing not just smiles and tears, but the very essence of the feelings that floated in the air. It was as if her heart were an ultra-sensitive antenna, tuned to a frequency few could access. The philosopher Martin Buber, in his work I and Thou, speaks of the dual nature of human relationships, distinguishing between I-it relationships, marked by objectification and detachment, and I-thou relationships, characterized by authentic presence and deep connection. Unknowingly, Sophia lived perpetually in the realm of I-thou, unable to experience the world through the more superficial lenses that seemed to shield others from the emotional tsunami of existence. As she grew, she learned to recognize the signs. When someone sought to harm her, seemingly coincidental events always intervened in her favor, as if the universe itself conspired to protect her. Deepak Chopra, in his studies on the law of karma, suggests that there is a cosmic intelligence orchestrating the events of our lives in perfect synchrony with our actions and intentions. For Sophia, this synchronicity manifested almost instantly, a phenomenon she still did not fully comprehend. The trees had always been her most faithful confidants. In its branches she found refuge, and its roots seemed to pulse in harmony with her own heart. The biologist and philosopher Rupert Sheldrake suggests in his theory of morphic fields that there exists a collective memory in nature, an invisible network connecting all living beings. Sophia experienced this connection firsthand, feeling herself a part of a web of life far greater than her individual existence. But it was on that particular morning, as she gazed at her reflection in the lake's waters, that something began to shift. A different kind of restlessness took hold of her being, as though every cell in her body responded to a silent yet urgent call. On the horizon, dark clouds gathered, not only in the physical sky but on a subtler plane that only she could perceive. Dr. Jacobo Grinberg, in his studies on the nature of consciousness, proposed the existence of a synergic neuronal matrix, a unified field of consciousness that permeates all of reality. In that moment, Sophia felt herself to be a vital node in this matrix, an unwitting guardian of a balance that was beginning to destabilize. Her hands trembled slightly as they touched the water's surface, creating ripples that seemed to carry messages in their sacred geometry. Nature has always had its own language, and Sophia, as one of the chosen, was among its most sensitive interpreters. But now, this language bore a warning, an omen of events that would demand more from her than she had ever imagined possible. In different parts of the world, others like her felt the same unease. They were ancient souls in modern bodies, guardians of a wisdom that transcended time and space. The philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin spoke of the Omega Point, a state of maximum complexity and consciousness toward which all evolution converges. The chosen ones, unknowingly, were catalysts of this evolution, points of light in a cosmic tapestry that was beginning to reveal its true purpose. On the other side of the world, amidst the bustling streets of Kyoto, Hiro walked with deliberately slow steps, a stark contrast to the frantic haste of the passers-by around him. His eyes, deep as wells of ancient wisdom, observed the chaotic ballet of modernity, while his mind wandered through far older and more sacred realms. As the guardian of a centuries-old temple, he had mastered the art of existing simultaneously across multiple planes of reality. From childhood, Hiro had perceived the world through a different lens. While others saw only the steel and glass buildings that now dominated the urban landscape, he saw the invisible lines of energy connecting every element of the universe, as described in the ancient texts of Feng Shui. Dr. Masaru Emoto, in his groundbreaking studies on the memory of water, had demonstrated how consciousness could affect the very molecular structure of matter. For Hiro, this was not merely a scientific theory but a reality he experienced with every breath. The words of the Zen master Dogen echoed in his mind. Time is not merely linear. Each moment contains the totality of existence. And so it was. With his experience of the world, each instant carried within it the weight of history and the potential of the future. As a chosen one, he could feel the reverberations of the past within the temple stones and hear the whispers of ancestors carried on the wind that swept between the towering skyscrapers. On that particular afternoon, as he embarked on his daily walk, a familiar yet intensified sensation began to envelop his being. It was as though every cell in his body resonated with an ancestral call, a summons that transcended time and space. The philosopher John Gebser, in his work on the evolution of human consciousness, speaks of different structures of consciousness that coexist within each individual, from the archaic to the integral. In that moment, Hiro felt all these layers manifesting simultaneously. His healing gifts, typically subtle and controlled, began to pulse with an unusual urgency. Those who passed by him experienced fleeting moments of peace and clarity, unaware of their source. Carl Jung, in his studies on synchronicity, described how seemingly unrelated events can be connected by a deeper meaning. Hiro sensed that every chance encounter that afternoon carried a greater purpose, as though the universe were weaving a complex tapestry of which he was but a single thread. The temple where he served as guardian held ancient secrets, knowledge preserved through generations of masters and disciples. Among its oldest manuscripts were references to a special group of souls destined to be born in times of great transformation, the Chosen Ones. Each of them bore distinctive marks, a profound connection to the natural world, an extraordinary sensitivity to subtle energies, and most significantly, the ability to act as bridges between the material and spiritual realms. Rupert Sheldrake, with his theory of morphic fields, suggests the existence of a collective memory that permeates all of reality. For Hiro, this memory manifested tangibly during moments of deep meditation, when he could access knowledge that transcended his individual experience. It was as if each chosen one were a node in a cosmic web of consciousness, each contributing their unique frequency to a universal harmony. As he walked, Hiro sensed a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The clouds in the sky began to move unnaturally, forming patterns he recognized from ancient texts. Dr. Jacobo Grinberg, in his research on altered states of consciousness, had described how consensus reality could be altered by changes in the neural field. At that moment, it was as if the very fabric of reality was reconfiguring itself. In the temple, the bells began to ring of their own accord, a phenomenon the elder monks had prophesied as a sign of times to come. Instant karma, that universal protection which had always accompanied Hiro, now seemed to expand beyond his personal sphere, as if preparing for a greater challenge. In his mind, images began to form, visions of others like him scattered across the world, each feeling the same call. Physicist David Bohm had proposed the existence of an implicate order in the universe, a deeper reality from which our material world is but a projection. Hiro understood that the events beginning to unfold were manifestations of this deeper order rising to the surface. The ancient prophecies spoke of a time when the veils between worlds would grow thin, when the chosen would be called to take up their roles as guardians of universal balance. As the sun dipped below the horizon over Kyoto, painting the sky in hues of purple and gold, Hiro knew that the time had come. The question was no longer whether he was ready, but whether humanity was prepared for the transformations that lay ahead. Deep within the heart of the Amazon rainforest, Yara followed a path invisible to ordinary eyes. Her bare feet touched the damp earth with the reverence of one who understands that each step is a sacred dance with Mother Earth herself. As the healer of her tribe and guardian of ancestral wisdom, she had long since learned that the visible reality was but a thin veil over an infinite ocean of mysteries. Anthropologist Jeremy Narby, in his study The Cosmic Serpent, documents how indigenous shamans access profound levels of knowledge through their connection to the intelligence of nature. For Yara, this connection was as natural as breathing. Since childhood, plants had whispered their secrets to her in dreams, and the forest creatures treated her as an ancient friend. That morning, something different lingered in the air. The energy patterns she had always sensed flowing through the forest were shifting in subtle yet significant ways. Biologist Bruce Lipton, in his theory of the biology of belief, proposes that every living cell constantly responds to information from its environment. Yara felt this response not only in her own body, but in the entire web of life surrounding her. The visions were coming more frequently now. In her meditative states, she perceived others like herself, a young woman gazing at a lake in distant lands, a temple guardian in the east, and others still, each carrying a unique frequency, yet harmoniously connected to her own. Quantum physicist Amit Goswami suggests that consciousness is the foundation of all reality, and that we are all interwoven within a universal field of possibilities. For Yara, this interconnectedness was becoming increasingly tangible. The elders of her tribe had spoken of a time of great transformation when the guardians of the four corners of the world would be called to awaken. They had prepared her from a young age, recognizing in her the signs of a chosen one, her ability to heal not just bodies but souls, her profound connection to the natural elements, and that mysterious protection that always accompanied her, manifesting through instant karma. Dr. Fritjof Capra, in The Tao of Physics, reveals the astonishing parallels between modern quantum physics and ancient mystical traditions. Yara lived this synthesis in every moment, perceiving how the oldest prophecies of her people aligned with the most recent discoveries about the interconnected nature of reality. As she walked, her fingers gently brushed against the plants she encountered, and each touch was a silent conversation. The vines moved almost imperceptibly toward her, as if seeking her contact. Mycologist Paul Stamets discovered that fungi form a vast underground communication network, linking different plant species in a forest internet. Yara knew this network was merely a physical manifestation of a far vaster and subtler web. Her recent visions troubled her. She perceived disturbances in the Earth's energetic matrix, like waves of discord rippling through the unified field of consciousness. The transpersonal psychologist Stanislav Grof speaks of the importance of non-ordinary states of consciousness for accessing deeper levels of reality. In her visionary states, Yara sensed that something ancient was stirring in the depths of the earth, something that demanded the attention and coordinated action of the chosen ones. The forest birds, usually her most reliable messengers, were restless, their songs carrying notes of warning that only she could decipher. The biologist Rupert Sheldrake, with his theory of morphogenetic fields, suggests that there is a collective memory in nature that influences the behavior of all living beings. Yara felt this ancestral memory stirring, as if preparing for an event of cosmic proportions. In a sacred clearing where ancient ceremonies had been performed for generations, Yara paused to conduct a ritual of connection. The circle of stones that marked the sacred space seemed to pulse with its own energy. The anthropologist Mircea Eliade describes how sacred spaces function as portals between different levels of reality. There, seated in deep meditation, Yara could feel the currents of energy connecting that point to other sacred places around the world. Her hands moved through the air, weaving invisible patterns that echoed the sacred geometries described by mystical mathematicians like Pythagoras. Each gesture was a prayer, a way of tuning her frequency to that of the other chosen ones she knew were performing their own awakening rituals in different parts of the world. The sun began to set, and the shadows of the forest stretched out like ancient fingers touching the earth. Yara knew that time was accelerating, that events prophesied millennia ago were on the verge of unfolding. The physicist David Bohm speaks of an implicate order within the universe, a deeper reality from which our material world is but a projection. It was this order that was beginning to emerge, bringing with it both promises and perils. In the growing darkness, Yara's eyes gleamed with ancient wisdom. As the chosen one, she was both witness and active participant in the transformations that loomed ahead. The forest around her whispered secrets that echoed the words of the mystic Pierre Teilhard de Chardin about the Omega Point, a state of maximum complexity and consciousness toward which all evolution converges. On the bustling streets of new, York. Aidan moved through the crowd like a conscious ghost, his hypersensitive senses perceiving far more than the apparent urban chaos. As a quantum scientist at the prestigious Institute for Advanced Study, he had dedicated his life to unraveling the deepest mysteries of the universe. Yet, no equation or theory had prepared him for what he had been experiencing in recent weeks. The neuropsychiatrist Karl Pribram proposed that the brain functions like a hologram, where each part contains information about the whole. For Aidan, this theory took on new meaning as his mind expanded to encompass realities that transcended his scientific training. In his increasingly vivid dreams, he found himself connected to others: a woman by a lake, a temple guardian in Japan, a healer in the Amazon. The physicist Wolfgang Pauli, in his collaboration with Carl Jung, explored the relationship between quantum physics and depth psychology, suggesting the existence of an unus mundus order underlying both physical and psychic reality. Aidan was beginning to grasp this fundamental unity, not merely as a theoretical concept, but as a lived experience. His laboratory instruments recorded inexplicable anomalies, patterns that seemed to respond to his own consciousness. In his high-rise apartment, monitors displayed data from various corners of the globe. As the chosen one, his extraordinary sensitivity manifested through an intuitive understanding of complex patterns. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, astronaut and founder of the Institute of Noetic Sciences, spoke of consciousness as a fundamental phenomenon of the universe. Aidan now realized that his own consciousness was expanding, tuning into a higher frequency. The data on his screens revealed disturbances in Earth's magnetic fields, inexplicable shifts in weather patterns, and anomalous fluctuations in global quantum measurements. Physicist David Bohm proposed that there exists an implicate order in the universe, a deeper reality from which our material world emerges. The changes Aidan observed seemed to suggest that this implicate order was manifesting in new ways. His gift of healing, which he had always rationalized as an advanced form of biofeedback, was intensifying. When he touched his equipment, the results of his experiments shifted in ways that defied statistical probability. Biologist Bruce Lipton had demonstrated how beliefs and consciousness could even influence cellular behavior. For Aidan, this influence was becoming increasingly direct and powerful. An email on his screen caught his attention, a cryptic message from a colleague at CERN reporting inexplicable fluctuations in the Large Hadron Collider. Physicist Nassim Haramein theorizes about the holographic nature of the universe and the significance of sacred geometry in fundamental physics. The patterns emerging from the data resembled ancient mandalas, as if space-time itself were revealing its fractal essence. Through his window, Aidan gazed at the city that never sleeps. Even amidst the urban chaos, he could discern an underlying order, a cosmic dance connecting every human being, every particle, every moment. Philosopher Ken Wilber, in his Integral Theory, speaks of different levels of consciousness and reality that constantly interpenetrate. Aidan felt these levels merging, the boundaries between science and spirituality dissolving. His computer emitted an alert. Another anomaly detected, this time at an astronomical observatory in Chile. The stars seemed to be dancing differently, their patterns altered in subtle ways that only the most sensitive instruments could detect. Astronomer Carl Sagan once said that we are made of star stuff. Aidan now understood that this connection was far deeper and more dynamic than anyone had ever imagined. In his personal laboratory, carefully arranged crystals formed a geometric matrix. Dr. Marcel Vogel, a researcher at IBM, extensively studied the properties of crystals as transducers of energy and information. Aidan had expanded upon this work, developing a system capable of detecting and amplifying the subtle energy currents that permeated the planet. His instruments began to record an unprecedented phenomenon, a wave of quantum coherence spreading globally, as if millions of consciousnesses were beginning to synchronize at a higher frequency. Transpersonal psychologist Stanislav Grof describes holotropic states of consciousness, where the individual psyche connects with universal awareness. It was as if the Earth itself were entering a holotropic state. A notification on his phone, another shared dream reported in his secret study on global synchronicities. Participants from different continents described the same visions: an ancient force awakening, a call echoing through time, and the urgent need for unity among the chosen. The instant karma that had always protected him seemed to be expanding, creating a field of influence that affected not only personal events, but global dynamics. Sociologist Ervin Laszlo proposes the existence of an Akashic field that preserves and transmits information across space-time. Aidan realized that the chosen were like nodes in this field, focal points through which new information and energies were emerging. As night fell over Manhattan, Aidan knew he was witnessing only the beginning of an unprecedented transformation. As a scientist, he had sought truth through reason and method. As the chosen one, he was learning to integrate this quest with an ancient and profound wisdom that transcended the division between the objective and the subjective. In the ancient city of Prague, Maya wandered the medieval streets beneath a sky heavy with dark clouds. As an art restorer and scholar of ancient symbolism, she had always been able to decipher the hidden messages within the paintings and sculptures she preserved. Now, however, the symbols themselves seemed to come alive, pulsating with an energy that few could perceive. The art historian Aby Warburg dedicated his life to studying what he called pathos formulas, archetypal patterns that resurface throughout the history of art. Maya saw these patterns manifesting not only in the work she restored, but in the very fabric of reality. The gargoyles on the cathedrals appeared to watch her with renewed attention, like sentinels awakening from a long slumber. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow as a fundamental aspect of the psyche, containing all that we deny or repress. Maya felt that a collective shadow was emerging, not just from the human unconscious, but from the very depths of the earth. The psychologist James Hillman, in his Archetypal Psychology, suggested that every image carries a soul, a living psychic reality. The images Maya encountered in her dreams and visions grew increasingly intense and unsettling. In her restoration studio, located within an ancient monastery, she worked on a recently discovered medieval tapestry. The anthropologist Gilbert Durand studied how symbols form constellations of meaning that transcend cultures and eras. The tapestry revealed patterns that Maya recognized from her visions, the same symbols that appeared in the dreams she shared with the other chosen ones. As her sensitive fingers traced the ancient threads, she could feel the energies embedded within the fabric. The philosopher Gaston Bachelard explored how matter carries memories and dreams. For Maya, every ancient object was a repository of stories and energies, some of which were beginning to awaken in unexpected and potentially dangerous ways. The strange events had begun subtly. At first, it was the restorations that seemed to unravel overnight, as if an invisible force was attempting to reveal older, darker layers of the works. The art conservator Cesare Brandi spoke of the importance of balance between matter and spirit in the preservation of art. Maya sensed that this balance was being disrupted on a much larger scale. Her gift of healing had always manifested through art, her ability to restore not just the physical works, but to reconnect people with the vital energy contained within them. The philosopher Walter Benjamin wrote about the unique aura of each piece of art. Maya could see these auras, and she noticed how they were shifting, some growing brighter, others darkening in troubling ways. News reports brought accounts of inexplicable events in museums and archaeological sites around the world. Ancient artifacts were disappearing or altering inexplicably. The archaeologist Maria Gimbutas documented how ancient cultures encoded profound knowledge within their symbols and artifacts. Maya understood that these objects were more than mere relics. They were keys to long-forgotten portals. During her nightly meditations, she connected with other chosen ones. Sophia, attuned to the waters. Hero, the guardian of Eastern wisdom. Yara, in harmony with the forces of nature. And Aidan, deciphering quantum patterns. Together, they began to realize that the forces manifesting were not simply negative. They were part of an ancient balance. That was being disrupted. The instant karma that once protected her was shifting. Now, when someone attempted to interfere with her work, mysterious events not only shielded her, but also seemed to unveil hidden truths within the very artifacts she was restoring. Psychologist Robert Moore studied how the archetypes of the warrior and the magician manifest in the human psyche. Maya felt these archetypes awakening within her, preparing her for a conflict that transcended the physical world. The shadows on the walls of her studio appeared to dance with a life of their own, forming patterns reminiscent of ancient scripts. Mythologist Joseph Campbell described the hero's journey as a descent into the underworld before transformation and rebirth. Maya understood that the chosen ones were being called to a similar journey, but on a scale that would affect all of humanity. A series of recurring dreams haunted her, visions of an ancient underground library where forbidden texts held secrets about the true nature of reality. The historian Francis Yates explored how Hermetic traditions preserved esoteric knowledge across the centuries. Maya sensed that this knowledge was resurfacing once more, manifesting through both its luminous and shadowed aspects. In the ancient city, the clocks began to behave erratically, as if time itself were warping. The quantum physicist David Bohm proposed that time, as we understand it, is merely a projection of a deeper temporal order. Maya felt this deeper order revealing itself through the artworks she engaged with, unveiling layers of meaning that transcended temporal linearity. As night fell over Prague, Maya gazed at the stars through the window of her studio. The astronomer Richard Tarnas wrote about how planetary archetypes influence human consciousness. She could sense these archetypes aligning in new configurations, setting the stage for events prophesied in ancient traditions across the globe. The tapestry on her work table began to emit a subtle glow, its symbols pulsating as though striving to convey an urgent message. The anthropologist Mircea Eliade spoke of how sacred objects can function as axis mundi, points of connection between different levels of reality. Maya understood that each chosen one was also a kind of axis mundi, and that the balance between light and shadow would depend on their ability to remain centered as ancient forces stirred. Deep within the Sinai Desert, in a place known only to a handful of guardians over the centuries, Gabriel contemplated the ancient inscriptions covering the walls of a hidden cavern. As an archaeologist and linguist specializing in prehistorics scripts, he had dedicated his life to deciphering the secrets of the past. Now, however, the inscriptions themselves seemed to decipher something deep within him. The linguist Noam Chomsky proposed the existence of a universal grammar underlying all human languages. Gabriel sensed something even more profound, a primordial language that spoke directly to the soul, transcending the barriers of time and space. The markings on the walls were not mere symbols, but keys to awakening dormant ancestral memories encoded in his DNA. One by one, the other chosen began to arrive at the site, guided by dreams and synchronicities that had led them across continents. The psychologist Carl Jung referred to this phenomenon as synchronicity, seemingly unrelated events bound together by a deeper meaning. For the chosen, every step of their journey had been orchestrated by a higher intelligence that now brought them together. Sophia arrived first, her eyes reflecting the wisdom of the waters. The physicist Fritjof Capra, in The Tao of Physics, describes how modern physics confirms the ancient vision of universal interconnectedness. As Sophia touched the inscriptions, waves of energy, visible only to the chosen, began to pulse through the rocky walls. Hero appeared at dawn, carrying with him the serenity of ancient temples. The philosopher Kitaro Nishida spoke of the place of nothingness, a state of consciousness where subject and object merge. In Hero's presence, even the stones seemed to enter a state of deep meditation, revealing secrets guarded for millennia. Yara emerged from the shadows, as if she had sprung forth from the very earth itself, her connection to nature amplifying the energies of the place. The deep ecologist Arne Naes proposed a vision of radical interconnectedness with the natural world. Through Yara's eyes, the others could see the lines of force that linked this sacred site to other hallowed points across the globe. Aidan arrived with his instruments, which recorded unprecedented quantum anomalies. The physicist David Bohm spoke of an implicate order underlying the manifest reality. The data Aidan collected suggested that this order was becoming explicit, as if the veils between dimensions were growing thinner. Maya was the last to arrive, carrying fragments of ancient texts she had uncovered in her research. The mythologist Joseph Campbell described how different cultures preserve aspects of the same primordial truth through their myths and symbols. In Maya's hands, these fragments began to connect like pieces of a cosmic puzzle. At the center of the cavern, a circle of crystals emitted a pulsating light that seemed to respond to the presence of the Chosen Ones. The geologist and mystic Marcel Vogel studied how crystals could store and transmit information. Each crystal resonated at a unique frequency, creating a symphony of vibrations that activated dormant codes within the DNA of those present. Gabriel began to translate the inscriptions, but it was as if the words were translating him, revealing truths he had always known at some profound level of his being. The linguist June Gebser spoke of different structures of consciousness that mark the evolution of humanity. Ancient writings revealed a map of this evolution and the role of the Chosen Ones in catalyzing the next leap forward. The shared visions grew more intense. Together they could see the web of force lines that enveloped the planet, the meridians of the Earth, as described in ancient traditions. The geographer Élisée Reclus proposed that the Earth is a living organism. The Chosen Ones now realized they were part of its immune system, activated during a critical moment of transformation. The instant karma that protected them individually began to merge, creating a broader protective field. The physicist Rupert Sheldrake proposed the existence of morphogenetic fields that influence the development of living systems. The field, generated by the Chosen Ones, began to influence the very fabric of reality. The walls of the cavern seemed to breathe, offering glimpses of other worlds and dimensions. The shaman and anthropologist Michael Harner documented how different cultures describe non-ordinary realities accessible through altered states of consciousness. The Chosen Ones realized they were becoming bridges between these realities. Deep sound, more felt than heard, began to resonate through the cavern. The musicologist and mystic Hazrat Inayat Khan taught that the entire universe is founded upon sound vibrations. The sound that enveloped them seemed to be the very pulse of the earth, calling them to a mission that transcended their individual identities. Gabriel began to decipher a central prophecy within the inscriptions, not a linear prediction of the future, but a map of quantum possibilities. The physicist Hugh Everett proposed the theory of multiple worlds, where all possibilities coexist. The Chosen Ones understood that their mission was to guide humanity through these possibilities toward a higher future. The shadows on the walls danced with purpose, revealing both the dangers and the promises of the moment they were living. The psychologist James Hillman spoke of the necessity of soul-making, of transforming events into meaningful experiences. Each of the Chosen now realized how their lives had been a preparation for this moment of convergence. As the sun set over the desert beyond the cave, the crystals began to pulse more intensely, as if responding to a cosmic call. The mystic Pierre Teilhard de Chardin envisioned an omega point toward which all evolution converges. The Chosen felt they stood on the threshold of that point, guardians of a transformation that would affect not only humanity, but planetary consciousness itself. In the ancient cave of Sinai, the 6 Chosen Ones formed a perfect circle, their consciousnesses intertwined in a dance of light and shadow that transcended ordinary understanding. The air vibrated with an energy that made the crystals sing in impossible frequencies, creating a cosmic symphony that echoed through unseen dimensions. The maestro and mystic Leonard Bernstein once remarked that music is sound with intention. In the sacred cavern, each Chosen One was akin to an instrument in a universal orchestra, their individual frequencies harmonizing into a composition that began to rewrite the very fabric of reality. The quantum physicist Max Planck asserted that, at the most fundamental level, all matter originates and exists solely by virtue of a conscious force. The Chosen were becoming conscious conduits of this primordial force. Sophia, with her profound connection to the waters, felt the ocean currents respond to her expanded awareness. The marine biologist Jacques-Yves Cousteau described the oceans as the planet's circulatory system. Through Sophia, the world's waters began to pulse with a new rhythm, carrying awakening codes to every form of marine life. Hiro, rooted in Zen. Wisdom radiated a stillness that paradoxically amplified the group's power. The Master Dogen taught that time is not merely a linear progression, but a manifestation of absolute presence itself. In Hiro's presence, time seemed to fold in upon itself, allowing the chosen to access knowledge from past and future eras simultaneously. Yara, in deep communion with the elemental forces, perceived how each breath of the group influenced global weather patterns. The ecologist James Lovelock proposed the Gaia theory, describing Earth as a living, self-regulating organism. Through Yara, the Earth itself seemed to awaken to a new form of consciousness. Aidan observed, through his instruments, how quantum fluctuations responded to the unified consciousness of the group. The physicist John Wheeler once suggested that consciousness and reality are fundamentally intertwined, proposing that observers participate in the creation of the reality they perceive. The data Aidan collected revealed patterns that defied the known laws of physics. Maya, attuned to archetypal patterns through her art, saw how the group's energies began to manifest in visible forms, mandalas of light dancing across the walls of the cavern. The psychologist Carl Jung described archetypes as universal patterns of the human psyche. Through Maya, these patterns took on form and substance, becoming bridges between the inner and outer worlds. Gabriel, deciphering the ancient inscriptions, perceived how each symbol became a living portal, a key to awakening dormant codes within humanity's collective DNA. Geneticist Bruce Lipton demonstrated how beliefs and consciousness can influence genetic expression. The sacred words Gabriel translated were literally reprogramming reality at a molecular level. Together they began to grasp the true nature of their gifts. The instant karma that had protected them individually had merged into an amplified field of consciousness affecting the very fabric of space-time. Physicist Nassim Haramein proposes that the universe is fundamentally connected through a fractal geometry of space-time. The chosen ones were becoming conscious nodes within this cosmic web. The capacity for healing within each individual now transcended the boundaries of the self. Dr. Larry Dossey has extensively documented the power of non-local consciousness in the process of healing. The field generated by the group began to influence the morphogenetic field of the entire Earth, initiating a planetary healing process that resonated through all forms of life. Their extraordinary sensitivities amplified exponentially in each other's presence. Neuroscientist Carl Pribram proposed that the brain functions like a hologram, where each part contains information about the whole. The unified consciousness of the chosen ones was becoming a living hologram of universal awareness. The connection to nature that each possessed expanded to include more subtle dimensions of reality. The mystic Rudolf Steiner spoke of different levels of consciousness that allow one to perceive higher realities. The chosen ones began to navigate these levels consciously, becoming bridges between the physical and the spiritual. The primordial sound reverberating through the cavern grew more intense, as if the cosmos itself responded to their unified presence. The Sufi mystic Hazrat Inayat Khan taught that sound is the force that created the universe. The vibrations generated by the group began to reconfigure the energetic matrix of the planet. Shared visions grew more vivid and detailed, unveiling both the challenges and the possibilities that lay ahead. Transpersonal psychologist Stanislav Grof documented how non-ordinary states of consciousness can reveal profound aspects of reality. The chosen were collectively accessing a state of awareness that transcended the limitations of the individual. Saigo. The very cave seemed to breathe in sync with them, its ancient walls pulsating with an inner light that revealed sacred geometries in constant transformation. The mystical mathematician Pythagoras taught that numbers and proportions are the language of the universe. Through their union, the chosen were becoming a living expression of this sacred mathematics. As their consciousnesses merged ever more deeply, each retained their unique individuality, like distinct notes in a cosmic symphony. Physicist David Bohm spoke of an implicate order underlying manifest reality. The chosen were becoming conscious manifestations of this order, capable of influencing reality from its most fundamental levels. The desert night beyond the cave was filled with stars that seemed to dance in new patterns, as if the cosmos itself were celebrating the awakening of its guardians. Astrophysicist Carl Sagan said that we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. The chosen were becoming a new organ of perception for the universe, aware of their role in the evolution of cosmic consciousness. At the deepest hour of the night, when the stars shone with a supernatural intensity over the Sinai desert, the six chosen remained united in a circle of power that transcended the barriers of time and space. The ancient cavern, a silent witness to millennia of human history, resonated with an energy that caused the very atoms of the air to dance in patterns never before seen. Physicist David Bohm proposed that the reality we perceive is merely a projection of a deeper, implicit order. In that sacred moment, the chosen not only grasped this truth, they became conscious manifestations of that fundamental order, capable of influencing the very fabric of reality from its most basic levels. Sophia, with her deep connection to the waters, felt the oceans of the entire world responding to her expanded awareness. Oceanographer Wallace J. Nichols studied how water profoundly affects the human brain and consciousness. Through Sophia, the planet's waters began to carry a new frequency of awakening, reaching every living being that drank from or touched its surface. Hero, rooted in the ancestral wisdom of the East, kept the group anchored in a state of absolute presence. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh teaches that the present moment is the only real moment. In Hero's amplified presence, each instant expanded into eternity, allowing the necessary transformations to occur beyond the limitations of linear time. Yara, in deep communion with the elemental forces, perceived how the earth itself responded to the unified presence of the chosen. Biologist Lynn Margulis demonstrated how life on Earth functions as an integrated, self-regulating system. Through Yara, this living system began to awaken to a new level of collective consciousness. Aidan watched in awe as his instruments revealed the impossible becoming reality. The quantum physicist Amit Goswami posits that consciousness is the foundation of all material existence. The data Aidan was gathering showed how the unified consciousness of the chosen ones was literally rewriting the laws of physics in real time. Maya, attuned to the archetypal patterns of existence, saw transformative energies manifesting as living light forms dancing across the cavern walls. The mythologist Joseph Campbell described myths as expressions of universal truths that transcend cultures and eras. Through Maya, these primordial patterns were being imbued with new life and meaning. Gabriel, immersed in ancient inscriptions, perceived how each sacred symbol became a living portal to higher dimensions of consciousness. The linguist John Gebser identified distinct structures of consciousness that mark the evolution of humanity. The words Gabriel was translating were catalyzing the next evolutionary leap in the collective consciousness of humankind. The primordial sound reverberating through the cavern reached an impossible crescendo, as if the cosmos itself was singing through the chosen ones. The mystic Hazrat Inayat Khan taught that the entire universe emerged from the primordial sound. The vibrations generated by the group began to reconfigure the very fabric of space-time, creating a new matrix of possibilities for planetary evolution. And then it happened, the moment to which all prophecies had pointed, the moment for which every synchronicity had prepared them. The physicist Ervin Laszlo speaks of the Akashic field, a matrix of information that connects everything in the universe. Through their union, the chosen ones became a new conscious node within this matrix, capable of accessing and influencing the field of all possibilities. The ancient secret that lay deep within the earth was not a force to be fought, but a truth to be integrated. The psychologist Carl Jung spoke of the necessity of integrating the shadow to achieve wholeness. The chosen ones understood that their role was not to battle the darkness, but to transform it through the expansion of consciousness. The shift began subtly, first in the patterns of the clouds over the desert, then in the deep ocean currents, and finally in the very magnetic fields of the Earth. Geophysicist Greg Braden documented how Earth's magnetic fields influence human consciousness. The transformation initiated by the chosen ones was literally recalibrating the planet's base frequency. Their individual healing abilities merged into a field of transformation that expanded globally. Dr. Larry Dossey demonstrated the power of non-local consciousness in healing. The field generated by the group began to awaken the dormant potential within every human being, activating latent codes in humanity's collective DNA. The instant karma that once protected them individually evolved into a new universal law of conscious harmony. The mystic Sri Aurobindo spoke of the evolution of consciousness as the next step in human evolution. The chosen ones were catalyzing this evolution, creating a new paradigm where cause and effect operated through expanded awareness. The shared visions revealed not just a single future, but a multiplicity of evolutionary possibilities. The physicist Hugh Everett proposed the theory of multiple worlds in quantum physics. The chosen ones understood that their role was to consciously build bridges between these realities, guiding humanity toward the highest futures. As the sun rose over the Sinai desert, its light illuminated a world fundamentally transformed. The philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin envisioned an omega point toward which all evolution converges. The chosen ones had become conscious guardians of this evolution, catalysts for a quantum leap in planetary consciousness. But this was not an end, it was merely the beginning of a new phase in the journey of consciousness. As the mystic Rumi said, "What you seek is seeking you." The chosen ones understood that every human being carries a spark of the same divine potential they had awakened. Their mission now was to nurture that spark in others, to create the conditions for each person to discover their own extraordinary nature. As they left the sacred cave, each carrying a renewed understanding of their individual and collective purpose, they knew that the true journey was only just beginning. The physicist Max Planck asserted that consciousness is fundamental and that matter is derived from it. The chosen ones had become conscious guardians of this fundamental truth, pioneers of a new era in the evolution of human and planetary consciousness.